Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Create With Us podcast for episode number 3, where we take you behind the screens. My name is Brett Barley. I'm here joined as always by my man, Jeff Vinn. Jeff, what's going on, buddy?
Not much. Here we are, excited to launch episode 3 and learn about something pretty important, which is ADA compliance and websites.
That's
a lot
right.
of people probably don't even know there's such a thing.
That's right. And you definitely want to watch this episode because it's very important. So we're super glad to be bringing in Tony Caggiano today. Let's talk a little bit about Tony real quick before we bring him in. Tony is the ADA Comply guy. So he is the guy to be talking to about this. After 30 years as an entrepreneur, Tony has seen his his share of success and failure, but his biggest secret to success is giving back to others. He does this now with his ADA compliance software to help the internet more accessible for everyone. So let's find out more about that. Tony, come on in, man. Let's bring Tony on in. Hey, Tony, what's going on?
Hey guys, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing well. Thanks so much for joining us, Tony. We really appreciate you coming on today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the ADA Comply guy. Let's kick it right off, Tony. Tell us a little bit about your hustle. What exactly is it that you do? Where are you from?
I am from Raleigh, North Carolina area, and I just got started in this business because I saw a huge need for it. I've been involved in IT for many, many years in different capacities, and knew about accessibility for websites years ago, but then ran across it about a year ago and realized that there really hadn't been much movement in that. And so long story short, I was working on a fundraising app for our local schools here in North Carolina. And when COVID hit, I had to shelf that project, but I had met a bunch of developers, and one of them was working on this project to create software to, fix the problem of having accessible websites. And I really gravitated to that. So talked to him a little bit more and really decided to take this project on full-time, 100%, and go for it because there's a huge need out there. When I found out there's only 1 to 2% of websites today still are compliant with ADA and accessible to people with disabilities, I just saw a huge need and opportunity to help the disabled community.
Wow, 1 to 2%. That's stunning. That's definitely, you definitely wouldn't expect that. So is there a certain type of customer that you work with as far as ADA compliance, or do you handle certain a lot of different fields? What kind of client do you typically work with?
Well, I work with businesses directly. So, if they have a website and they really need to make it compliant, we can provide them with our software and other services also to make videos closed captioned or put alternate text into their photos on their website. But I also have been recently working with web design studios and any type of digital marketing agencies. So that way we can incorporate our software with their offering because of a tax credit that's available, which can really make this a big advantage and a big benefit to a lot of businesses. And we can go into that a little bit, in a minute, but I just, to answer your question, those are the types of businesses that I've been working with.
That's awesome. And then you spoke about going into the medical industry as well. What piqued your interest there? Like, medical provider websites? Well,
one of my biggest but one of my biggest uphill battles in doing what I'm doing is the lack of awareness that this is needed. And so, when I first started out, I was just going everywhere and talking to all types of businesses saying, hey, this is something you need. And it took a long time to explain to them what they really, what it was for and why it was needed. And, wasn't getting a lot of traction for a while until, it's taken me a year to get the word out. But one thing I was seeing is in the specialty medical field, like chiropractors and dentists and, the medicalpreneurs, if you want to call them, the people who have their own businesses providing services to their clients. I was seeing more and more awareness in those fields of ADA compliance and accessibility. So I decided to really try to focus on that niche because I would have to educate less and they were more aware of it. And, if their peers were already doing something like it, it was easier for us to really help that niche market. And so that's where I started going in the past couple months, is really connecting with those types of businesses.
And Tony, when you and I were talking, you mentioned an amazing statistic, which surprised me, about how many visitors to a website have some kind of disability. And then I assumed it was a certain kind, like vision or something. But explain what that statistic is, like the actual experience users have out there, and what percentage of the population struggles.
Yeah, I mean, it's mind-blowing, really, that to know that almost 25% of all internet users have some kind of disability, whether it's a seeing disability, a hearing disability, a physical disability, or even a cognitive or learning disability. 1 out of every 4 to 5 people, almost a quarter of the internet users, have some kind of disability that in some way or another hinders their use of a website without any type of tools available. So, I tell people, tell businesses that if you're doing marketing, you're only marketing to 75% of the population, because even if you reach somebody who needs these certain adjustments on your website, if you don't have them, if you get them to your website, they're not going to be able to convert as a client or get the information they really need that you're providing. So.
Sure. And Tony, tell us about what the law says, because this law is like changing. It's been on physical buildings forever, right? Or physical locations, right? We see, ADA compliant parking and getting into buildings and stuff, but this is new to a lot of business owners and website owners. What does the law actually require and say? Like, what's stemming this? And then 2, like, there's been like legal activity that's triggered it, right?
Yes. So the ADA is the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was signed into law in 1990 by President Bush. And since then, it's become commonplace, like you said, to see handicap parking and handicap ramps, accessibility in bathrooms and public businesses and places. But only in the past 4 to 5 years has it really moved over into what they call digital real estate, which is any business website. And so over the past 4 to 5 years, the ADA has been going at it differently than I think they should, in my own personal opinion, is going after businesses that are not compliant with the ADA guidelines, which they use the guidelines from the WCAG, which is the Worldwide Consortium for Accessible Web Design. But instead of putting out word saying, hey, this is what you need from, to be compliant now online, they're just utilizing legal actions to certain businesses all over the country. And last year there was over 11,000 lawsuits filed against websites for ADA compliance. And the number is growing each year. The year before it was only about 3,000. And so it's growing dramatically. So that's why I'm trying to get the word out there. But what the ADA and the law says is still a very gray area. The ADA bill governs digital real estate now because of the precedence of the cases that have come before us. So even if you get a letter, there's a good chance that if you get a letter, you're going to have to spend money on legal action in order to defend that, and then do whatever you need to make your website compliant. And that doesn't guarantee that you're not going to have to pay the fines. If your legal case is, set in your favor, then you may not have to pay the fines, but you're still going to have legal fees. So there's a big burden on companies if they do get a letter or served with some kind of legal action, if they don't have the ADA compliance now. Sure.
We've heard of, as a web design and online marketing agency, we've heard of some cases where predatory lawyers will come in and represent victims and like go hard after, say a medical practice or something like that to get a settlement. So have you heard of any of that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are a lot of the lawyers that take these cases on are, doing the spray and pray approach, where they're sending out tons of letters and then, hoping to get settlements and other things. But I've even seen where, talking to some references that I've come across, that some of their clients were bloggers, and there have been a lot of bloggers that actually closed up shop because they didn't have the money to pay the legal fees or the fines. So it's put people out of business just, with these legal situations out there.
That's wild. Moving to the solution, though, with so many, say 1 in 5 visitors having some kind of disability, Your solution makes it pretty simple on the website, right? And it's not too much of a headache to install, right? Because a lot of times web design is complicated. Getting all these compliance features in place is just an exhaustive. Tell us a little bit about how you go about getting it on your site and how it works.
Yeah, our software is very simple to install. We take your URL or your web address and we put it into our system, and we'll give you a custom JavaScript code that gets pasted into either the header or footer of your website. So we've tested on dozens of different website builders, from WordPress to a lot of the top funnel builders. So it's easy to install. And what it does is it gives you a very simple toolbar that you can put anywhere on the screen. A lot of people, we recommend putting it on the left-hand side in the middle, because that's where it's easy to see for people.
Can we actually pull up a site and screen share? We could do a quick little.
Yeah, you actually, the best site I think would be my site, adacomplyguy.com.
Okay, let's see if I can pull it up here and share the screen. We could actually look at how it works.
Yeah, and so while you're pulling that up, I'll explain the software that we have helps make your site what they call single A compliant to the WCAG. There are 3 levels. The first level is single A, which covers most of the things that need to be done for web compliance. The ADA likes to see double A, where there's no actual law or standard yet. So the double A will include things like closed captioning and alternate text and things like that. So our tool is the first step at making sure that you're doing the right thing to make sure your website is compliant, but also not only just to be compliant, you're allowing your website to be seen by more people, not only in the disabled community also, but because accessible websites rank higher in SEO, you're going to be reaching a lot more people that may not even be a part of the disabled community to find your goods and services on your website. So,
gotcha. Are you seeing the screen here?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome. So this is your site if people want to get to you, the ADA Comply Guy. And then how do we trigger the compliance feature?
It should be there. You may have to pause the video. But it was just
I got a little there. It's just loading with a screen share.
There you go.
So I see it there. This little accessibility icon will hover wherever you go.
So click on the icon and it will bring up the toolbar, which we've designed to be very simplistic. Let's see. It might be a little lag with the screen share.
Yeah, it is the screen share. It's working. I had it up a second ago before it started.
Very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the tools.
There it goes. Right there.
So the toolbar is designed to be very simplistic, because there are other softwares out there that are similar to this. We're not the only one out there, but there aren't very many. And one of the larger competitors to what we have only has 50,000 or so clients compared to the millions of websites that need this. So to me, they're not even competitors. They're actually helping create awareness. So that's the way I look at it. We all want to work together to make the internet accessible to everyone.
Sure.
So the way we designed ours is very simple to make sure that it's easy for somebody to just click on the buttons. We have a text-to-speech, which is the TTS, which is a screen reader. So once you click on that, if you hover over or you highlight text, it'll read any paragraph that that text is part of. We have display options, which if you click on it once, it'll go to a grayscale, which will help color blindness. If you click on it a second time, it will highlight any headlines and links or just headlines that you want to see. And then if you click it a third time, it'll give you a negative contrast, which is kind of like an X-ray to most people. But in some seeing impairments, this really helps them be able to at least see what's on the website.
Wow.
And if you click it again, it'll just bring it back to the regular. So again, it's very simple, easy, just 1, 2, 3 clicks. There's no slide bars or anything else to help it. But some of the other tools on there are things like readable text. So if you have script fonts or other types of fonts, it'll change it into a text that's much more readable. And then, so there's a lot of tools on there. So a lot of these tools will give somebody the dynamic ability to adjust the website rather than There was an old, the original way was to go to your web designer and say, here are the standards you need to change all the code, the back end of my website, and make it a statically accessible website. So it would have guidelines to make your contrast a certain level. It would make sure you had certain fonts. But then this limits design. You can't design your website to make it look the way you want to, maybe for your branding or whatever. It's a very generic type of website because you have to design it within these certain standards. And then it also doesn't give you the dynamic ability to allow people, say with color blindness even, to change the website or to zoom in or screen reading. So the toolbar really is the first step to getting a lot of dynamic ability to your end user to adjust your site, and then moving along with other things that we can do to help you get to that AA level by changing some underlying features as well.
For sure. And wrapping up this part of the discussion, that's an awesome tool. It's easy to get on there. It's surprisingly affordable. So talk about how much it costs you. I believe you have an annual subscription. And then 2, there's a legit tax credit that businesses can get when they invest in their website or do their thing.
Yes, absolutely. So it is very affordable. It comes to about $1 a day or less. And with the tax credit, most businesses will qualify right away for the tax credit. If your business makes $1 million a year or has less than 30 full-time employees, then you will qualify for the tax credit, which is up to 50% of what you spend on accessibility. So if you have a website that you've already built and whatnot, and you just want to add accessibility, you can utilize our software, and we can help you add it. And anything you spend on our software will be applicable to the tax credit. So you'll get 50% back in your taxes next year for whatever you spend. But if you work with a design agency or a web agency that already utilizes our software, then if their services and their website includes our software, then you'll be able to qualify for the deduction or the tax credit of the entire amount that you're spending on your annual web adjustments or upgrades or the website itself. So
that caps out at $5,000, correct?
It is $5,000, up to $5,000 credit. So, if you spend $10,000 on your web design or anything like that, you can get back up to $5,000. But if it's less, it'll be half of whatever your annual spend on accessibility is, whether it be the software itself or a web design that includes that service.
Wow. Very cool.
Very cool.
Yes.
That's very important stuff, Tony. And thank you so much for walking us through it, man. That's excellent.
Absolutely.
So let's go from ADA Comply Guy stuff to Tony stuff. Let's talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. We talked a little bit before that you've been an entrepreneur for 30 plus years. Is that true?
I have been, yes.
Wow.
I got started years ago with just some fun stuff. I started I bought a long story short, I bought a 4-wheeler when I was a teenager, and I fixed it up and used it for a while and then resold it and started buying and selling motorcycles. And then eBay came along. I started buying and selling cars, and then became a DJ. I owned my own IT business. So over the years, I've grown my businesses a little bit more and more. So
kind of expanded. Very cool. A man of many talents. That's what we like. Awesome. So considering all that, considering there's been multiple fields, what would you say has been the most rewarding part of your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I think one thing that I learned early on, and I loved it because I got involved with volunteering with the Special Olympics when I was in my 20s. I always found that whatever I did in my entrepreneurial journey, my business, I always wanted to give back. And so, I always either, had a donation or gave of my time when I couldn't monetarily give back. So my biggest reward is really making sure that whatever I do is going to benefit the greater good, the local community, or some other organization in some way or another.
Excellent. That's good stuff. So from the other side of the coin, what would you say is the most challenging part of being an entrepreneur? I know there might be a few different things to select from for this answer, but what's the first thing that comes to mind as far as big challenges?
Well, most recently, my biggest challenge is really educating. In the past, I've had businesses where they were very straightforward. I owned an IT company. I would work with clients. They would know exactly what we do. But with my current business, ADA Comply Guy, really my biggest challenge is, making people aware of, what this need is and what I'm doing actually to help them. So I think education, educating people on a new topic has really been my biggest challenge recently.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thanks for telling us all about that. Now, here's the fun part. You ready for this, Tony? We're going to go into a rapid fire round. So it's
super. Let's do it.
Yeah, no preparation, off the hip. Jeff's going to take it away and throw some questions at you. Let's see what you got.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot more to life than work and then entrepreneurship. So outside of work, what's a hobby of yours or an activity that keeps you fueled up and pumped up for life?
Oh, that's easy. That would definitely be hanging with my boys and playing basketball.
Nice.
Both my boys are big into basketball, and my older son, he's 15 and is striving to play college ball. So he's, he eats, sleeps, and lives basketball. So whenever I'm not working, we're usually outside shooting hoops or going to the gym when we used to be able to go. So that's definitely something that keeps me busy and happy.
Awesome. Yeah, physical, get a little physical activity component too. And what is one piece of advice that you'd give to your younger self?
Other than buy Amazon, is definitely keep moving forward, and that's something that I learned and actually took from a Disney movie, Meet the Robinsons. When I was watching it with my older son when he was younger. So I kept that mantra and I keep that in the back of my head. Even when you're facing adversity or you think that things aren't going your way, and even if you get to the point where you have to shelf something or scrap it, you've put on all this time and energy, look for other opportunities that can come out of failures, out of things that didn't go the way you thought they were, and just to keep moving forward.
Awesome. Can totally relate to that. 2 more questions left. What is a book you highly recommend?
Well, actually, one of them it's up there. It's called $1 Million Habits by Brian Tracy. It's a book that I read. It was my first self-improvement book. I was in Barnes & Noble one day, just going for a coffee, and I walked down the self-improvement aisle, the self-help aisle, and I saw the book, and I just picked it up and read the back. I was like, oh, let me look at this, and I bought it, and I read it, and that really helped change my mindset or start my mindset journey when I was in my 20s, and that's definitely a book that I keep close. I can always remind myself of where I started and the journey I'm still on.
That's awesome. That sense of perspective. Last rapid fire round question. What's one thing you're deeply grateful for right now?
One thing I have a lot of gratitude for, and it's a little different than people may think, but I'm very grateful for 2020. There were a lot of adverse things that happened, a lot of things, the world changed. We weren't used to it. But like I said before, there were a lot of opportunities that came out of this humongous change for a lot of us. And, I was able to take advantage of a lot of those opportunities. And so therefore I'm very grateful for 2020.
Nice. Learning from that adversity. Very cool.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. That's awesome. Got to stay optimistic through it all. And I think everybody, businesses included and entrepreneurs and all kinds of people had to, obviously were forced to learn a lot in the past year. And that's a good way to look at it. Take what you learned and apply it moving forward. So it's been great connecting with you today, Tony. For everybody watching, if they want to find out more about ADA Comply Guy, they want to find out more about you personally, tell them where to head. Where can they check out more about you?
Yeah, I'm very active on Facebook, so you can look up ADA Comply Guy and find me there. I'm also on Instagram, but I also have my Facebook group, Entrepreneurial Journey, which connects to my podcast. So, you can look me up in any of those channels and get to know me better.
Excellent. What's the name of the podcast, real quick?
It's the Entrepreneurial Journey.
Okay.
Same as the Facebook group, and that's where
tell
you
us. Yeah, tell us about that real quick, so the listeners know if they want to check that out. Why'd you start it? Who are your guests?
Yeah, it's a very similar mindset that you have, Jeff, of giving back to other entrepreneurs. I've always, along my journey, I've been, helped along the way by certain people. And I always knew that, when I found success or I got to the point where I had enough knowledge to help others, I would want to do that. And helping entrepreneurs to me is one of my missions, because especially these days, a lot of people are changing careers and, doing more on their own. So, to help people that are just getting started any way I can is one of my passions. So I started the group early last year, just started doing interviews in the group just to bring on other entrepreneurs to listen to their success, to help the group members. And then I created a podcast and moved that into the audio format. So a lot of people who like to listen to audio formats can listen to it there. So
there you go. Very good. Well, everybody head on over and check out more from Tony. It was so much fun hanging out with you today. You too, guys. Thank you for teaching us about you. We had an absolute blast with you. And I'm sure we will be seeing you again very soon. So to everyone at home, thank you so much for joining the Create With Us podcast today. We will see you again next week. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tony.
Bye-bye.